Okay. We have to,
Go share.
y'all, y'all do. That's right. Let me turn off the Wi-Fi on both phones. So we are not.
We are live and we're getting started here shortly. Push you back
Yeah.
30 minutes to give everybody time to join us. You know, unwind from work. Our CST people, our MST people.
Yes, and our ET folks. And our ET folks.
Our ET, yeah, yeah. And PST, hey, hey, hey. And what other time zones, you know? Let me see.
Yes, yes. What was I gonna say? Mm, I don't remember. So, how has the week been
So far, so good.
so
Is
far? So
today
Good.
Tuesday? Today's Tuesday, yeah.
yes, 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 yes.
Yes, it's a new week.
And we see some people coming in. We have a special guest today. We
We
So
have
have
a special guest today.
we're
My
gonna
week's
start.
been good. I did arm day at the gym. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Dang. Um,
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. When you're talking your mic, you have to kind of wait, pause and then.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad I saw that. But I was just saying I did arm day at the gym yesterday and I can't really put my hand above my head for real. Like that hurts.
You went in.
I called Destiny like, is this normal? Like
You went
girl.
in kind of hard, huh?
yeah.
Cool, cool.
How was your week?
It was good. It was full. It was full. I had
Are
a lot.
we talking about last week or are we talking about this week?
The week last Tuesday to this Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
But I think we're ready now. It's
Let's
7:30
get
on the dot.
started.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Cocoon Podcast. We are your host, Kaya.
I,
Maya.
and I am Ife. And we are happy to be with you guys again on this lovely Tuesday evening. We have an amazing, very full topic to discuss today. We are talking about raising children while raising ourselves. And I'm sure all parents know that you really can't avoid that. You think that you are, no, I don't even know if we go into it thinking we're fully equipped for parenting, but we realize how being a parent really grows us, matures us in a way that we could not have imagined before. And our children are along for the ride. Our children are along for the ride. And there's just so many very wonderful, interesting, and one to grow on type of experiences through it all. So we're just going to be talking about a lot of tidbits and sharing some things as well. And then we have our guest coming on a little bit later to add to the conversation. So
Our
where we
very
start?
first guest. That's
Yes.
exciting.
Okay. So where we start?
So we're gonna start off just talking about the crash course in parenting, aka the infant toddlerhood, that type of age where it's like boom, 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 all coming at you fast. I'm in the thick of this stage right now. I have a 1 year old, and we're just gonna get into some things in that area. So let's talk about how first there's when you first go in, you're kind of thrown in. There's no manual. You could take a parenting class, but it's not going to be like, I don't know, like what do you think about that, mom? Like there's
Well,
not.
every baby's different, also. You can take a parenting class, but what you're taught may not work for your child.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
true.
I
That's
think what
true.
I think is always one of those things where you really cannot understand it until you experience it. It doesn't
Mm,
matter what people tell you, the wisdom they pass down. There are some things that you'll pick up from people
mm-hmm.
that when you apply them, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm glad somebody told me about this.
Bruh.
But I don't, it's one of those things that just to have an understanding, really, you don't even really understand it just by someone kind of explaining their experience until you are a parent yourself. Then the experience itself brings you that, I don't even know if
Wisdom.
wisdom after a while, but then you realize that, this is real. There's just that no one can tell you. No one
You
that's
can't. It
almost
can't. It can't be spoken. Like it literally can't be spoken. Especially that part when they say like the newborn takes over your life. Like you don't even. You can't really even understand what that means until it happens, and then you're like, oh, like
So this
yeah.
is
Yeah.
real.
oh.
Yeah. So what was I'm curious, we're all gonna answer this question
Mhm,
from mother, grandmother, auntie. Like there are things that we are told, like jewels that were
mhm.
given, wisdom that is shared, and then there is some of that helped and some of it didn't. So what were the things, the wisdom that we were able to that influenced, informed, and helped us in new motherhood, new parenthood, and then what were some things that just like hit you out of nowhere, that just were totally unexpected, and you weren't really sure what to do? It was new.
I definitely feel like what was wisdom was knowing that I was gonna need help. I feel like that was the
Mm.
wisdom for me. I remember you told me that ahead of time, Mom, when I was pregnant. And I was just like, like I used to be a very independent person. So you're like, you're gonna need help. Like this is not something you can do alone. This is a community. Like raising children is a community. Having a baby is a community effort, and you can't do it, especially in the beginning, by yourself. And I was just like, I, But walking into it, knowing that, and getting prepared for that definitely helped.
Mhm.
Even
Did
just
that help you manage your expectations or not be so hard on yourself, or did it help
yes,
you?
to open myself to accept help,
Yes,
because before
embrace.
I would have just been like, I'm not going to ask for help, but I was like, no, like you need to ask, you need to ask. So I was already getting used to that in pregnancy. I feel like having you as a mom gave me so much insight into like, into knowing what to expect, or into like you kind of did give me a manual. So I don't know. Um,
Unsolicited, I'm sure.
you gave me a manual. I've been in like doula spaces. I've been
Yes, yes,
around new
yes.
mothers. Like so I think I had quite a good manual, just seeing like, you know, their
Being around
sleep
it.
schedules, their food, like breastfeeding,
Right.
like those types of things, the parts that you might really need help in. I think I got that. But like I said earlier, the part that was new was just how little time I would have for myself,
For
even still.
yourself. I think
Like I
that's
used
the
to
important piece. You hit a wall with that. Now, learning, you're picking up all the tips about how to take care of the baby. But when you realize how much energy you don't have or time you don't have for yourself, and that your body literally cannot do things because it's healing, it's adjusting, it's that part, you're not ready for it. It's totally
but you know
unexpected.
what? As we speak about this, I feel like that's intentional, because if like eventually you, as time goes on, you learn how to find yourself a little bit more, but your
Mhm.
focus still stays around them. So I think that it might be like naturally intentional to kind of like throw us into like, this is what you're supposed to care about. And then you slowly learn to integrate yourself back into that, but that still is the center. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, it's like you said, a crash course in parenthood. Like that first year is like them. And you're kind of like, is that making sense?
I
Or
don't
do you
know.
follow? Like, do you
I
agree?
don't know if I think, and if that is nature's way. I'm like, and here's why, because, and this is why it's important that community supports new mothers, is because the mother should not have to suffer
Mm.
during those times in order to take care of her child or be
Maybe
present.
not suffering, but just the fact that they are the center of your world.
Oh, well, you can't, that you can't avoid, but I'm talking about the things that the new mom, in terms of the limitations on the body,
Mm.
the healing process, all of those things. That's the part that I said you don't want to have to do this alone.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's a ceiling for what you're capable of doing, and you need community, you need people that are there. I want to talk about what was kind of new for myself as
Yeah.
a mother in this process. um, because having the wisdom of about how much uh, attention, time, and peace of mind that you actually needed, I was super, super protective of that.
Mm.
Super. Almost, to the point where it was like a mama bear thing on a whole nother level, because I clearly understood the threat to that and how it can affect your mental and emotional well-being. And so, and how your well-being was going to be a benefit to Sahir. And if you're not okay, then he's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would enrage me for people who did not understand that,
Understand that. Yeah.
ignored that piece, that the mother has to be
The
okay
mother's well-being is
for the
directly
child,
tied to the
in
baby's
order for the
well-being.
child to be okay.
Mhm.
It just has to happen. So yeah, that was one of the things that that consumed me. Your
Yeah.
well-being, obviously.
And I'm glad that it did. I'm glad that it did. And
Yeah.
before, because I do see we have a really good comment, but I just want to say one thing back to you
Mhm.
on that, is that that is probably the most important thing that I knew ahead of time. I prioritized in my head, like before I had him, I said, okay, my priority first is my peace. And then it's, him, because I knew that
Mhm.
me being mentally unwell was directly going to affect him. They are still connected to you, and they feel everything that you
Very
feel.
much.
Like,
Yes,
that's
you're playing
so,
with your body.
yeah, so taking care of yourself is taking care of them, which kind of goes back to what we were saying. And I'm just so glad that you were there to help me protect my peace and to be like that standing in, because who knows? Like, who literally knows?
Right, right, right. So, Auntie, what was kind of unexpected in this experience for you? The parenting. Aunties are, they are a type of parent.
Yeah, the fun kind.
What was unexpected?
Even just like being front and center in the
Yeah.
beginning part.
Um, well, I guess witnessing, yeah, I've never witnessed it that close up. Like, I've
Hmm.
never witnessed a mother and a child that close up, like everyday
Mhm.
type of situation. So even like what you guys were just talking about, I mean, I was there through all that and just kind of seeing you through all of your phases. Why are you looking?
Because I'm listening.
Oh, I don't know. And just, I mean, just being there, it was just very, I don't know how to explain. It was very, I mean, still is though. I still feel the same now as I do from the day he was born. Like
It sounds
just the,
like you're still processing.
It does. It looks like it's still surreal. Like, is
yeah,
this
because it's just like,
life? Like,
yeah, you're my sister. This is her baby. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
So you're still
it's,
in shock a
I'm
year and a half later.
still just, just a little bit, but um, yeah. I guess just the whole thing is kind of just like a shock, but not as far as like when it comes to taking care of him. I don't really think anything on that necessarily was a shock. But
watching Maya transition.
watching her transition into
Yeah,
the mother
yeah,
was probably the
yeah.
biggest into a mother. Was
Okay,
probably
we do have a comment. So Shauna says the whole time is a crash course. Yeah, each child is so different, and each year the needs shift. Each year,
yeah. I was gonna
absolutely,
say yeah through all, not just
And
child.
absolutely.
it happens so
Yeah.
quickly. You have to be so adaptable, because one second you have to be attentive in this way. And then the next day you have to be attentive in this way. And then 2 months later, like it's a whole new set of rules. And like you're realizing, like, oh, I actually have to talk to you for real. Like I can't, like it's just like it's just,
This is
and
a
sometimes
whole
you
person.
realize a month later, like, oh shoot, I should be doing this with you now because you can do this. Like my things that play hide and seek with him, I said he can play hide and seek. Like, what do you mean? Like, but so mom, for I know you spoke from like watching me, but when you first became a mother, like what was new to you? What was wisdom that you had heard prior to that help? Don't make you
No,
were
so
like,
no, when I think back at it, I kind of created this bubble for myself in pregnancy that when I had you, now this is something when I got home from the hospital, I had what I would call 15 minutes of some crazy postpartum. I don't know if it was postpartum depression, but some postpartum reality where I was like, whoever I was before I had Maya, I am no longer her. And I was sitting with this living being me, and I'm like, I can't even think of it was like I'm a mom. You know, I see moms all the time, but it really was I birthed something and then I was reborn as well. And it for a minute, my mind was doing some flips. Like I really couldn't wrap my head around what had happened. It was a good 15 minutes. It was a good 15 minutes when I just had to have this process of, like you said, adapting to this new world. And that was real. And once I had that 15 minutes, it didn't take long. I was just like, okay, here we go.
I always tell her that she's like, you can't really ask her much about parenting because she's just like, oh, that was great. It was wonderful. It was easy. I loved it. Like
I loved
you
it.
were this.
I loved it. I loved it all. I love it. I loved it all. The younger stages. But I do tell
Right.
this.
Emphasis
I'm
on
like,
the
why was
love.
that past
We're
tense?
going to get into the part that I didn't like too much.
Real emphasis on the love.
Like,
Like
If you guys remember, I remember when
but
I had Maya in the hospital, and the doctor gave her to me, and I was just like, who, first of all, she didn't look like a little baby. And I was just like, "Who? What is this? What is going on? Hi, Maya."
you
It was so
I was
surreal.
big.
She was super big. And
I think it's yeah.
and so it was more of a shock to me in that moment as well. So I think there's definitely some processing. And that I don't think people talked to me about that.
Mm,
We didn't really talk about postpartum depression back then
mm.
when I was having children. We didn't talk about the the that phase of not of really releasing the old you and how it comes front and center once you get into your day-to-day life of having a child, and that transition, there's something that
A new
happens
you is birth. You're not the
psychologically.
same person. Yeah.
Psychologically, there's definitely something that happens.
Which is
um
why it's so important for us to talk about this and
Absolutely.
parenting yourself because
There's
you're
something that
literally,
happens.
you both start off at the same space, you know?
And so one thing that I think is important, which is why I thought it was important with you, it was critical with you. And this is the same with, I think, with births as it is with funerals. After the birth, after the funeral is when the people need someone the most.
Mm-hmm.
That's when things get real quiet, though. After the
Mm-hmm.
funeral, you go home, and
you're
that's when you come face to face, or when you really sit in the energy of what has happened and things get real quiet. No one's really
Mm-hmm.
around. No one calls, no one comes. After the birth, that can happen too for a lot of new parents, new moms, or they're more concerned with the child and not necessarily the parents. It is in those moments when community needs to show up. It's after the event. Is
For
when
the mother, for the
holding,
parents.
holding space for the
Yeah.
parents.
And
Holding space.
with this is a great way to kind of segue into our next question because the like we said we kind of need to put the mother the parents in the forefront because their mood their
Yes.
responses to their environment are directly affecting that child. Did you want to talk more about like how you saw that show up in your parenthood, Kaya? Even like when you see kids that you work with, like can you
Yes.
tell based on their parents like what type of emotional regulation skills they might have gained from them or the level of health of their parents and how that affects the child?
hey Jovi.
Hey, hey.
I want to speak really quickly, I felt like there were definitely things that I was experiencing emotionally around, interpersonal stuff, around things with family, around things with your father, with y'all's fathers. But I always felt like that you guys didn't deserve. No, I mean with your father, y'all's
Yeah, you
father.
said that plural. We have the same father, guys. She don't got multiple baby daddies.
Like, wait a minute, is this something we don't know? That was a slip.
Right, you just slipped out there. Let's.
But I really felt like it was important for me to work out my stuff and show up in as much love and joy and peace for you guys, because you didn't deserve any of the drama. You literally didn't. So even if I was feeling some type of way, and you guys were just such, joyful, happy babies anyway, just full of light and love. So it was easy. That part was easy as well. But I made it a point to put my stuff on a shelf or move through it, process it quickly so that I could show up for you guys with some sense of groundedness and be there, because I do know what happens sometimes is parents may check out because of the emotional and mental strain that is going on around them. And although they're holding their child or they're talking to their child, they're not really there with their child. They're
And
not
the
really
children can kind of feel that
and
too.
the
And
children
again, why community is important.
can definitely feel that there isn't any, presence in the here and now with their parents. So that was just important to me. Like, listen, y'all ain't deserve all that. And look at these cute little kids. They're so cute.
We
So,
did a great job of that. I don't remember any. I don't. I don't know. Like you did a great job of kind of like keeping it separate because I don't know nothing about that. Like it.
and what's crazy is when you were little and Kaya was born, when she was a baby and you were a toddler, we were going through some interesting shifts and transitions and instability. There was a lot of stuff going on, moving and neither one of y'all, you could tell that y'all were oblivious to it. You guys thought that every new shift was like a vacation or
But that's how you treat life, though. So we probably picked that up from you because you
good
probably
point.
were like,
Good point.
like imagine if you'd been like, damn, like if you'd been like acting like
Mm,
that, we probably would have picked up on that too. Like you were just like, all
okay.
right, guys, so we probably like
You're
we
like,
felt your
that's a
energy behind it,
good point. If
even though.
I displayed a lot of stress, then that would have definitely be transferred to you guys.
Mhm.
Good point.
And so thanks, because I feel like we both do really good with that just now as adults. Like I think that foundation, but that's important to mention now. They say the first 3 or 7 years you're building your child's subconsciousness. So
Mm,
even if they don't remember the things that are happening around them, their subconscious is being built. So it's important to
yes.
like to pour into them. I just want to touch on this real quick because it's important to speak positive affirmations because that's what builds that voice in their head that
Yeah.
they when they get older, you're like, oh well, how do I think it's building their subconscious? So even taking them, I take here to the beach. He may not remember, but his emotional regular, like his body knows peace and
He
his
wants
body knows
to
the
know that.
feel. Like we breathe. And the other day, did I tell you he tried to deep breathe? He was like he's like, I said, yes, baby. Yes, baby.
He would.
I was
Oh,
so proud of him. That was on Sunday. But anyways, stuff like that, just building their subconscious, even though they can't remember, it's important. So yeah, you did touch on something. You said that stability. We didn't have a lot of stability.
not
Stability and
external
structure.
stability. Not
Right.
external. Okay, let me say this. Ooh.
So stability, structure, and raising kids. Let's talk about it.
Well, so here's the thing. There was some external upheaval, but we always had structure. You guys had a
Mhm.
set bedtime. I didn't care where we were, what was going on.
Mhm.
Bedtime. You had your meals at a specific time, no matter what was going on. Meals happened at a certain time. Bedtime was what it was. Activities. There was always some type of structure. And I don't know if I was talking to someone earlier today, and I said a lot of things that I do for my own mental, emotional wellness. And so people think, oh, you make it look so easy. Like there's things I have in place because I have to keep my mind, you know, at ease. And
Mhm.
so I think that having that structure was a part just as much for me as it was for you guys, you know,
Definitely.
having a
Yeah.
lot of internal
Yeah.
upheaval. But you guys knew when y'all was gonna eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You knew what the expectation
And that's
was
important.
and getting up and when you were gonna bathe and when you were gonna. There was a lot of structure.
Structure helps kids know what to expect, and even if they don't like it, they need it, and they actually gravitate more towards that.
Very
So
good.
that's a really good point there. Um,
Real
we
quick, I
kind of
want
touched on this.
to. There was a time when you were kind of acting out. And I think I was a little exhausted that day. And there was an elder around, and she said, children actually want the discipline. Sometimes
Mhm.
parents think that when their child is acting up, they want to be more gentle with them. You know, they don't want to give them boundaries and things like that because they don't want to upset them more. She said, but actually, what's happening is you are seeing them not understand how to, you are seeing them not knowing how to regulate themselves. And so they're actually asking for the discipline. When
Tell
they're
her.
out of sorts emotionally, they're
Kaya,
asking
stop.
for boundaries. They need you to help to shape because they just entered this big world.
Thank you.
And if you don't have the boundaries and the discipline in place for them, then they're going to feel unsettled inside and you're going to see those emotional outbursts. And so that's what she was telling me. I was like, oh, it clicked. Like, okay, that's right.
They
So
need that.
you guys had a conversation about this before? And
Yes, I definitely said it a little more like bluntly.
Mean.
Yeah. I was just like, Maya, he child. You are his mother. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like he needs to, it's not an option, it's not a choice. You
that's
are the adult here. You tell him what to do and he does it. Like it's not just, oh, it's okay. Like we'll worry about it later. I'll work on it later. No, baby, later is gonna be too late. That's why structure is important. You do it now, or it's gonna be, honey, it's gonna be rough and tough down the road, Maya. You gotta Sahir, and Sahir is smart. That's the thing.
yes.
You don't act like, hey,
So for context, Kaya has worked with children
yes,
extensively and still does now. So, and I've always thought that she had a very balanced way that children love her,
mhm.
mainly because they know that she loves them and because she gives them structure and discipline.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and Sahir does
They
like that with
love it.
you.
They love
He
it.
does act right, but he acts right with you. Kaya's the auntie that don't play. Like she come around and he be like, and you. But for me, he just be
It's
wilding
not
out. So I do need to learn
a boot camp type of thing, but it's just like
discipline. Oh, you
because
know what? This just made me think about something, and it actually does go into our next topic, so we can kind of segue. But I think I may have an aversion to discipline because in one of my parenting homes, it was confused with control. And so I don't want to feel like I'm controlling my child because the lines were blurred for me at my father's house between control and discipline. And so that might be why I have that aversion in my own parenting to do so.
or just with, yeah, that's a good point.
And I also
that
don't like
But,
discipline, and
but
just
we're
in
both
general.
going to tell you now that you won't have a problem with that. You're nowhere near the type of parent that would be controlling with your child. Nowhere near. So if you could just add a little bit,
as big as that, baby.
right.
Listen, I'm about to sit down and talk to Sahir about this. We'll talk about this later. Like, we'll revisit this later. I'm like, listen, bro. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's get into our next,
And
next
I
topic.
think this is where we're going to be bringing on our guest.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
So we're talking about the next phase that we're going to be discussing is the preteen and middle school years, the identity tug of war. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I know that I may be the odd person out here in this one, but I actually really enjoy this stage of the lifespan development with children because it feels like what is it?
You don't have to be harsh, and I don't feel like I'm not harsh with my discipline, but there is a certain tone, and there is a certain, you don't have to be harsh. You're not yelling, you're not yanking, you're not, but there is a certain tone and a certain presence and a certain energy that you have to bring when it comes to a child, just so they can understand that, and they'll understand that it's not harsh.
Firmness,
They'll
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I think, and here's a good time to talk about the definitions of that as I see it. Like, discipline isn't necessarily harsh at all. Abuse is, you know what I'm saying? So when we say discipline, and some people will say that they're disciplining their children, and it's actually more abusive than and controlling, right?
Yep.
So we do need to kind of identify, think about where we are on that spectrum, or if it even is a spectrum. If you tipped over, then you need to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So shall we introduce our
We're
special?
waiting for her to pop in, so we'll keep moving
Okay, cool.
until she
Um,
arrives. There she
so,
goes.
hmm.
And
And Shauna says, I was harsh. I'm saying for the version.
I don't know. The balance between control and disciplines is just so, I don't know. For me, it's like I don't have that like tone of that makes you take me
No,
seriously. So
no.
what do I do? Like, do
My
I gotta pop you now? Like, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Cause I say stuff and I don't mean it. I'm like, put that down. I don't really care. Like, but I'm supposed to
But
care.
I think that you
So
need to figure out why it's important, and shifting, you maybe reframing these things for you. If you understand, you might not care, but you're also helping to build a
a
child's
human. Yeah,
ability to
I
be able
know.
to self-correct and control himself. That's
I know.
important,
I know.
right?
I'll talk about this in therapy next week.
Okay, I want to say something real quick. I think that it's interesting. The staunch disciplinarians are just throwing this out here. Oh my, yeah, I just want to put that out there because
Oh
I
yeah.
people are like, no, my it needs to be. Okay, so here we have welcome our guest.
Welcome. Woo!
welcome.
Hi, ladies. How's everybody doing?
Hey.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me give you a little introduction. Adia is a wife. She was a military wife for what, 20, more than 20 years, right? You guys just
Yep.
had an anniversary. How
We
many
just
years?
hit 21. So
Woo!
21 married,
Yeah.
19 in the military.
Legal.
Happy anniversary.
21 years.
Yep.
Um, and she has 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, almost an empty nester. And
Almost.
almost,
Almost there.
she said like that she wants everybody gone, but she doesn't. So
You're right.
almost an empty nester. And she's an event planner as well. So for all of the reasons, all of the right reasons, I think she's an excellent person to have on this particular podcast
Yes.
to give her insight around raising children, and also the difference between things that she has experienced from, raising boys and a girl and so on. I
Yeah.
only had it from one side of the fence, and that is raising my girls. And I remember when they were younger and we would hang out with Adia and Adia's boys. She only had boys at the time. And my girls would just be chilling, like reading a book and playing dolls. They might turn up for a second or two, and then they would come back and chill and sit down. And then Adia's boys were doing boy things, right? I
All
mean,
over the place.
all over the place. And they would, "You wanna trade? You
Yeah, we
wanna
never saw them
trade?"
sitting still.
She would say, "Do
They
you
were
want to trade?" And I would say, "No, I'm good. I'm good." But so one of the first things that we want to talk about, um, one of the first things. Wait, so real quick, Consuelo says, "I would take boys any day." Now we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna get into that in a minute. In the beginning, it seemed as if, the girls being cool and calmer, so it seems. And then, once we get into the
I get
preteen
to grow
years,
up. Mm-hmm.
things change up. Things definitely change up. So I
Would
could
you say you've
see
seen that idea?
Absolutely. So my boys, I'm gonna give you a rundown of the ages. So I have 3 boys, and then my youngest is a girl. So I have 24, 22, 19, and 12.
Whew.
Yeah.
You said run it all the way back.
All the way back.
So for my boys, it was fun. Raising boys is fun because they're rough, they're tumble. You can do things with, like, just the boy stuff. You can get in the dirt with them. And I thought I was just gonna have boys. I thought I was just relegated. I wanted a girl so bad. My entire life, I wanted a girl, and these boys kept popping up. And I was like, it is what it is. I'm a boy mom. And then I had my daughter. And the differences of raising boys and girls are so different and so much the same at the same time.
Mm.
It's crazy. So I always thought that boys were just nasty little boys. And then I had a girl, and I realized girls are just as nasty. it's little boys.
Compare it to. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah.
It is. But I also realized that my daughter's very much more emotional.
Mhm.
So I have to feed her a little emotion. She's still gangster because she got 3 brothers. So she's still a little rough, but you have to like feed her emotional gangster a little more than I did with my boy.
So I'm sure that was different for you because you had been trained being a boy mom, how to deal with, the changes and things like that. And then you have this girl who needs a little bit more in terms of the, emotional material.
Yep. And then what you guys were talking about earlier, I just want to touch on that for a minute because I can definitely see that with my boys, the discipline and control. I think with my older 2 boys, I was more controlling than disciplined.
Okay. Tell us.
And then I learned with my 3rd boy, I think he has more discipline than control.
Okay.
And if I can go back and do one thing different with my older 2, that's the thing I would change, because I think I try to control their life. Like, no, do as I say. If I say ABC, do ABC, instead of kind of walking them through why I'm saying ABC and letting them know this is why my mom is saying this and this is why it makes sense, instead of don't ask me why because you don't even know why, just do it.
Yes. No.
Mom like to say that too.
I fell on both sides of that. It depends on the thing. And I brought this
better
up
with
to
that
my,
for a while.
huh?
I said I think you eventually got better with that, but for a while it was like because I said so.
Exactly. There was, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because when I would get into conversations with you guys, there were things that you just couldn't even understand because your little lives just didn't have any context for it. So it's like, I can only tell you so much, but there's things that I know that you just don't know. And so at this point, you're just going to do what I said. Okay. Remember, I gave you an example about
the parking lot,
about hitting a child, right? And because they're going into the street. So I said, this is where I feel like physical punishment is necessary. And I stand on this, and I stand on it, because a child is going to they're just going to find themselves inspired to just run. They don't really have an understanding to be afraid of the fact that they could die if they get hit by a car.
Right.
They don't even know that that's a possibility. They don't have that understanding yet. But what they will have an understanding for is me whooping that. And they don't want that. And if I have to do that to save their life, I'm going to do that until they build an understanding about what running in the street can cause. It is what it is.
So I hear you and I feel you. My method would be showing them a video of someone getting hit by a car
and dying.
This is what happens.
Here, this is death.
I don't know if that will work.
You go bye-bye.
You want to risk it?
I think they would get it. I think they would get it when they're
but
that age, when they're running through the parking lot.
Yeah, you think, but it may not work though.
Maybe not death, but do you see you get hit? Like that's gonna
play
hurt.
video games and don't make the connection.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way you talk to them. I think it does take a lot more time and energy to get them to understand it, but that would just be my perspective.
Because Will says, "I did 2 or 3, Maya." Like you can't just show them
It's
videos
like just
down.
pat him on the butt. They're not gonna
Show them videos of people get mowed down in the street. Like, no.
understand.
Maya did tell me that. She been telling me that that's what she was gonna do.
So I'm going to go back to what you were saying, Adia, about controlling and then discipline.
Mhm.
Also, how hands-on and how hands-off you were in your raising of boys and girls. Can you speak to that? Like, were you really in their business? And what did that look like?
I still am in their business, unfortunately.
Unfortunately for them, right?
I am. I'm the parent that you couldn't lock your phone when they got phones, when they first got phones. I'm the parent that was going through your text messages. I'm the parent that there was no such thing as locked doors. You weren't allowed to lock the door. You're still not allowed to lock the door of my house because it's my house. If I go in your room, go in your room. So I'm still like that. However, as they got older, I understood that I needed to give them more rope. And they needed to kind of learn a little bit. And I think with the older two, I didn't do that. I was very much, Caleb was 19 and still had parent restrictions on his phone at 19.
That's crazy.
Partly because I forgot the password and I just didn't know it. So he literally had to get a new phone in order to get the parent restrictions off. And then with each child, it was a little different. Like I was able to release a little more. I think Caleb got the brunt of it because he's the oldest, and we call him our guinea pig child. I had no clue what I was doing. No clue what I was doing at 21, being pregnant. I was like, what's going on here? We always joke that I will pay for his therapy because I'm sure he needs it. Positive he needs it. But a lot of it was I didn't know. So I'm an only child. And my mom was a single mom. I didn't know a lot of things, kind of like what Maya was saying. Growing up, we didn't have a lot, but I didn't know we didn't have a lot until we got more. I thought everybody ate the same meal every night. It was normal. And my mom never complained about it. It was like, this is normal. This is what we do.
Right.
We eat restaurant every night. So does everyone else on the street, at least in my mind. That's how that was. And then when my mom was able to provide more, I was like, oh, wait, that was not normal. Okay, shopping at Goodwill. To me, everybody shopped at Goodwill because my mom never made it a down, like she never made it a bad thing, or it was like an adventure. Like, let's go find what treasures we can find.
Absolutely. I still don't find treasures at Goodwill. Are you kidding me? Yeah. People have some very interesting eclectic.
Oh no, that's where I drew the line with mom.
But in middle school,
oh no,
not so much. The kids were like, "What are those?" I had to experience that, but then I would come home and tell my mom, and she'd be like, "So they just don't have style."
I know that's right.
I know that's right.
But my mom would always boost me up, so I never really felt bad about not having a lot. Partly because she never made it. It was never a negative. I never knew we didn't have a lot until we got more, and then I look back and like, oh.
That's a perfect example of how a parent handles a situation, is how the child will see it. To literally shape their reality.
My kids, I adopted that. I don't think that I made a conscious effort to adopt it. I think it's just because how my mom raised me.
Right.
In the beginning of our marriage, we were young. We didn't have a lot. Moving from base to base. And I remember the kids telling me that it was fun. Moving from base to base was never fun for me.
Yeah.
But for the kids, it was like an adventure.
A new home, a new place. Yeah.
They just loved it. And I think it's because my husband and I did a good job of not making it a negative thing.
Yeah.
And not harping on, you have to leave your friends and start school. And it was more of like, we get to make new friends.
Yeah.
We get to see a new place, and we have a new house. And so the kids now, when they look back, they're like, yeah, that was fun.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, I hated every second of it.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a
You know,
really
but
good point about the kind, it's kind of a gravity though, like of you can shape this person's reality. Like these little kids, these little brains, they don't know too much based on what you do. Like you can give them off, like, like you kind of have control
Yeah.
over what they see and
You,
how they see it,
yeah.
which can be a
which
beautiful
is
thing if
also a
you know
lot of
that.
pressure though, as a
Yes.
parent. Like that's a lot of pressure
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's like if I misstep, I'm the person they're looking for to how their world is shaped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I make a misstep, I'm not just affecting me anymore. Like
Yeah.
there's
Mm-hmm.
someone else out there that can be deeply affected and have all kinds of issues, good or bad, that carry them forward in life. So it is a lot of pressure in parenting, just knowing that you're shaping someone's reality.
Right. And you don't
Um,
really get that sometimes until after, like you in
right.
retrospect, hindsight is 2020. I mean, the girls always say like you did an amazing job. When I look back, I'm like, okay, but there's some things that I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have known that, or I wish I would
Hmm.
had this type of wisdom at that stage. But the whole point of this podcast is like raising children while we're raising ourselves. Like I could not
Hmm.
have had that or
Mm-hmm.
didn't have it until that understanding, until there was more
Is this
experience.
where you guys think that like grandparents and aunts and community kind of come in? And do you guys feel like having those, did you guys have that type of like hands-on community that might have helped you help you shape their realities and like kind of make that weight a little less heavy?
I want to say something real quick about that. I think I used to tell you guys this all the time, that I felt like at the ages in which we actually start having children, whether it be early 20s, mid 20s, when most of the people that I knew were having children, I still think developmentally, and then where we are with our careers or not, we really are not equipped to pass down any wisdom. Like we're we are not. We are
That is
working
so
it
true.
out. We are working it out. And so grandmothers and elders in the community are the ones who've been through it. They have gone through these life changes and shifts and transition. Have gathered a body of knowledge and wisdom, that they're the ones that are really equipped to pass down, some understanding. And so I used to always say, I think I'm gonna have to take one for the team when my children have children, to step into that role and kind of releasing them of some responsibility, like parenting twice in a sense. Because I feel like the way that our folks used to do it back in the day, in terms of mostly Black people and people of color, the parents and things would still be out trying to, figure out life. They're working, they're putting their careers together, whatever. And the grandparents were the ones that were there with the children. There's
Mm-hmm.
a reason why that was the way that it was. There's a reason why. And so I think that we're through those 20s and early 30s, shoot, going into your 40s, you really don't be knowing.
I definitely still feel like I'm just a girl. Like I'd be like,
You, yeah,
Adia,
yeah.
what do you think?
I think that's true. I think my experience was a lot different because we did the military thing. So
mm,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have my kids didn't have their aunts and uncles and grandparents on a consistent basis because we moved around so much.
Mhm.
I think community is important. I didn't know the importance of community until I got a little older.
Right,
So again, that's one of the things I feel like my kids kind of missed out on
right.
because I just didn't understand the importance of it. So I would go some places and be very standoffish and very like just to myself, to my
mm,
family, to my house, and not really reach out to try to build those community relationships around me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that I know that there's value in that. And I always tell my kids, if you're watching right now, I can wait. I can wait. I can wait. But I always say I can't wait to be a grandparent, but I can wait. I can wait. I can wait.
don't pop up tomorrow.
I can
Like,
wait.
Right.
Just put off. I can wait. But when my kids start having kids, I really want my heart's desires to be a full-time grandmother. Like I want to be able to go back to that where I don't want my grandkids to go to daycare. I would want you to just bring them to my house while you go to work.
mhm,
And I want that kind of community, that family that, you know, my mom had, because my mom had her grandparents, her aunts and uncles. My mom said she never had a birthday party with other people because there was so much family that she really couldn't invite her friends.
Mhm.
There just wasn't room because of all the aunts, uncles, cousins that were there.
Yeah.
And I want to get, that's my heart's desire, to get back to that. I
Yeah.
think just as a people, we've drifted so far
Mhm.
from our roots in that sense
Yeah.
that our kids now miss out on that, on just learning from the older generations in their family. And I mean, I think it's different. My husband and I were having this conversation about, so two of our kids have moved out of state. One is in Arkansas, and as of Friday, one will be in Florida. So he was like,
Wow.
people don't stay anymore. People
Mm.
don't stay where they're from, don't stay around their family. Everybody's branching out to make a better life, to for careers, for aspirations. So people, you know, our kids are moving like across countries and, or to
Community,
different countries. You
community
know,
is
Mhm.
different.
And
Yeah.
it's
Like a lot
harder
of
to
people
have
hold
that.
that
Yeah.
space.
I grew up where everybody, her whole family's in one city.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not like that
They're yearning
anymore.
for a thing that's really a relic. Like it's just it may not ever be.
Mhm,
No, it might
mhm.
not.
I always say I
Especially.
want to be in a position when my kids have kids to travel freely.
Yeah.
So even if they're out of state, I can still travel. I want to be in a position where if they need to come home with their families, they can.
Come home.
Mm-hmm. Mom's
Mhm.
always
Like
said
I
that
never
too.
want them to feel like I can't go home. I want them. And so you know,
Listen. Mm-mm.
we purchased a home that was big enough.
Mhm.
So it's like if they need to come home, even with their wife and their children, there's a place to come home to.
Mhm.
Right.
Where
And
when I was younger, I was like, as soon as my kids leave, I'm getting a loft in the city.
I remember you saying that actually.
I want to live in a loft in the city, just me and my husband, and like this, you know. But as I got older, I'm like, no, I want a home where my kids can come back to with their kids, with their families, should they need to,
They need
Mhm.
um,
to.
and have that. So I had my cry session a little earlier this week from my youngest son leaving. He's leaving on Friday, so I had one breakdown. I'm probably gonna have another one before he leaves. But I was like, "You're abandoning me," and he's like, "Mom, you're being."
Were you crying in front of
So
him?
dramatic, not abandoning me. Like
That's how I
what?
felt. Though. I was like, I
You
worked
really
this
feel
hard.
that?
I kind of
Talk about it. No,
not
talk
okay.
about
Not
it.
abandon may not be the right word. I just feel like Corey and I worked really hard to be in a place where we have this house and we have room for everybody, and everybody wants to leave. And it's like, well, what do we, you know? And
Uh-huh.
it's like this soon. He's only 19.
Mm.
Like I wasn't, which I am proud of him. Very much proud of his courage because at 19, I don't know that I had the courage to move across the country from everything and everyone I know. Because he's moving to a place where he literally knows no one other than the people he's working with.
Mm.
I don't know that I would have had that courage at 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So I applaud his courage. And I applaud the fact that he's confident in it. He's like, no, I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna work. I have these goals, I'm gonna reach these goals. By the time I'm 25, I'm gonna have this and this and that. Like he has a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
When's his
proud of him. But
birthday?
at the same time, he's July 22nd. So he's a
Okay.
Cancer. Um, he's very much focused, and I'm proud of that. But at the same time, I'm like, but you're my baby. You can be successful here. I think since I was on the phone with you, I was like, no, but you can be successful here. Like,
And we're going to talk about that more too, like when we, you know, learning how to let go, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
navigating those spaces too, learning how to let go. I wanted someone left a comment. It made me think about something prior that you were talking about with the cell phones. And I remember when Maya was in middle school and she wanted to be on MySpace. That was when MySpace was what it to be. And so I told her no, she could not be on MySpace. And the way that I explained it was I wouldn't let you walk out and wander the city by yourself. So I'm not going to let you be in the virtual city by yourself.
Mm.
And there's so many people that you can come across and so many profile, folks that be preying on this, that, and the third. And so, no, you can't. And what did she do?
Got
I
on
went
there.
and made myself a MySpace with a Tweety Bird background at my after school place.
Look how she's flaunting the whole idea. And then she listened, but she had to suffer the consequences of doing so as well.
I did.
But and so I didn't even know, and I wasn't the snooping parent at all. I never went looking for anything. I just, like I said, I've said this in the previous podcast, I just really didn't have time for that. But I would always stumble upon it. Either I'm stumbling upon it or I'm dreaming about it.
It was
And
Facebook
so,
was like suggested a friend. It was like this is I didn't know that emails like I didn't know that your email would be like, oh, this is your email contact or whatever.
right, right. And then I also had a mole, but we're going to talk about that later. I had somebody in the neighborhood that was keeping tabs on them for years and they never knew. And she would call me up. She was a little younger, but she was like one of my god daughters, and she would call, or sister, she would call me up and be like, hey sis, or text me, da, 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 da. So she was giving me the inside scoop on things that I didn't say. I couldn't. She had her
Because we
ears.
thought we could trust her. We had her on
Hello.
Snapchat while we smoking weed, like
Hello.
like
We drinking, partying, honey. We doing it all on this now.
Okay, hold on. Here's the comment about that as well. Ashana says, I caught an ex-con communicating with one of my sons by going through his phone. He thought he was talking to a girl.
wow.
Wow.
That's the
See, that's scary.
See?
That's it. And so I have a similar story with my oldest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what happened. Something happened in the house where everyone was getting yelled at. It was one of them things where it's like, just line up because everybody's getting yelled at.
Yeah, there's a reason.
When it got to Caden, who was the youngest boy, when it got to him, or where I don't even remember what the circumstance was, but his way of getting out of that was literally, Caleb has Instagram.
Damn.
The way my husband and I's head shifted back to Caleb, like, wait, what?
Rat him out. Wow.
I mean, just like that. Caleb has Instagram.
That's
and it was
crazy
like,
work.
wait, how did you get? So then we had to go down that whole rabbit hole of how, first of all, how'd you get Instagram? Because I have all kinds of parental control set up on your phone.
They find a way.
They find a way. And that's the difference. Like going back to control and discipline. I was trying to control him instead of disciplining him. And he found a way right on around my control. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway.
So Maya and Kaya, talk to that a little bit, because I don't feel like my parenting was control. The boundaries I had in place. I feel like I was probably like, what my parenting was different from the norm that you guys have your other friends' parents and such. And so it looked like I was old fashioned in a sense, but I don't feel like I was controlling. I just knew what was safer. Because think about it. If you look back at the time, you guys probably didn't agree. But
no,
if you look back,
I feel like it was controlling in a sense, because controlling is saying you can't, and because I said, like, controlling is literally controlling what we do, saying yes or no, versus kind of being like there's just certain situations where you weren't controlling, but then some where you were. And so, but I do think that not being control, I feel like for you, the way that you think it makes sense as to why you did that, because you're just like A plus B equals C. So we're not doing, like, we're just going to know, instead of the discipline part, or like explaining, and then like, not really. You never told me why I couldn't have a MySpace. You never said why not.
I did say why I told you. You didn't understand.
You never told me at the time. You just said you can't have a MySpace
thing at the time. No, I said those exact things. I said I'm not going to have.
Okay, for me though, let me explain this. For me, I was already in social spaces online, like with the Warrior Cats, with the like there were a lot of different social spaces online, and I was actually fine. I just think, to answer your question, maybe Kaya can answer this too, but I do think that for a while there was a point where you stopped being controlling and more disciplined, but I do think there was an aspect of control for sure.
Right. And so here's where I'm going to, we have to agree to disagree, because you don't even remember me giving that explanation. But the explanation, you probably didn't understand it, which is
No,
why it
no.
was controlling, because you didn't have the
Hard-headed.
ability to understand what I was talking about.
You just weren't really listening.
Huh?
I'm just saying mine was also just a little more hard-headed. So she just wasn't really listening.
But
And that
also my thing was like I felt like I was being
Yeah.
controlled on things that weren't that deep. Like there are people that were like doing drugs and being out late at night, and I just wanted
and
to
I
have
don't
my
care about
space.
them. I
That's
wasn't worried
all.
about the extremes. I wasn't worried about the extremes. I was worried about your development. And at those ages, you did not
But let me
understand.
say, I didn't even have a curfew because I wasn't allowed to go anywhere after school. I went straight home from school. There was never a curfew. It was like you're just home after school.
Yeah,
That, do you know
because
what
you
I'm
have homework and you have to eat at home after school. Do you know what people were doing after school? All these other places? Like, I
I
know
don't
that.
know, but I'm just saying. I'm just
But I had
saying.
certain parameters in place for your well-being. Just because other people were doing other things doesn't mean it was right.
No, but I will still say though. I mean, I can agree with Maya, but I do feel like me and Maya, of course, also experienced different, because me and Maya were different. So I had my phase, Maya had her phase, but even our phases were different. So I can still agree with Maya though in saying though I do feel like like it wasn't all controlling, but there were certain things that it seemed like it was more on the controlling side, certain things more on the discipline side. But yeah, that's really all I have to say.
And what in what? Like in what
Mom.
ways? No, I think it helps to get into the nitty-gritty.
Maya, give an example, because I can't think back of an example for real, but
I
I'm
just
just
feel like I don't know. I
Okay,
feel like
so here's an example. Here's an example. Remember when you were like, I'm gonna have these people come spend the night at the house, and you got in trouble, and I said, no, you can't.
me,
You can't. No.
Maya.
Okay, so actually, let's talk about you, Kai.
Are we about to talk about when I snuck that girl to the house?
See? Do you hear the examples that are coming up? And then they're like, oh no, you were controlling. But
No,
someone
because
would
they would be
shoot
such
people to
small
the
things that she would
house,
say no to.
and
I would
then
be like, I'm gonna do it anyway.
right, and then the friends that didn't have any parental controls, their parents didn't even know where they were. They were out doing all kind of wild stuff, and you wanted that life. And I'm like, no, that's not the life that makes sense.
Who are you talking to?
The
when
friends
I
that you had, like,
when I
Me
asked
or
mom if the
Maya?
girl could come over to our house and she said no, so I wrote a fake slip to give to the bus driver and signed it as mom saying that she could ride our bus and come home.
Maya,
no,
but see, the
Oh,
difference.
wow.
night and got in
No,
trouble.
yeah, Maya, that's the difference between
I
me
was
and
in
you.
fifth grade.
Not
Maya
only
be
did she write a note for that friend, but she also made sure that her sister and her cousin got on a specific bus that didn't take them to the after school program, but took them right to the house. Like she orchestrated this whole thing.
Wow. In the 5th grade.
Right.
no, yeah, Maya was
So
real.
I see why you might have been more controlling with me. But I just think for different children, different things work and don't work. That's all I will say.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all I will say.
I think with you, I also think that it didn't matter whether I explained
No,
it
it didn't.
or had a hard boundary. So I just did whatever I felt was best. I wasn't gonna,
Yeah.
and I do remember you later saying, thank you, mom.
And I think
For
we have a great point here because I feel like you lessened up the control with Kaya, but then she had that phase where she was just wilding a little bit because she didn't have that control. And so she had the space.
That's it.
okay, wait, before because we're getting a little ahead with I
Yeah.
want to ask Adia another question. Do you feel like we as parents have a parenting bias or blind spots with our children? We don't really
Absolutely.
where we don't
Absolutely.
really see the parts of them that aren't as sweet and or as good. And we could know our children. We know how they can trip out, how they could do some crazy stuff, but still we're like, no, not my baby. No, not
Yep.
my
Yep.
Or you
Not-
the
but
same.
you know what? I think a lot of that has to do with birth order as well, oddly enough. Like, I feel like with the oldest, that's like the guinea pig child. So you're learning together and you're growing together. And then with the children after that, I think that's where you develop the blind spots. Because I have a whole bunch of blind spots for my younger kids that I don't have with my oldest.
Mhm.
And but
Oh,
That's
the thing
true. That's
is,
valid.
I know they're blind spots.
you
I
know it.
know they are. And I still can't see them. Even though cognitively, I'm like, I know I'm missing something here. But my mom brain does not allow me to see certain things of my younger children because they are just perfect. Not perfect, but you know what I mean? Like, in my mind, it's like, no, nobody wouldn't
Same
do that.
as you did.
Knowing full well she's my child.
Yeah.
So she absolutely would do that. You know what I mean? But it's still because the boys will always be like, Mom, how does Amari get away with so much? Like, how does that would have never worked when I was 12.
Right. Right.
Like, that would have never. And then, like, she'll back talk a little bit, and all the boys look at me like they're waiting for the reaction that they're not getting.
Yeah. Waiting for
Who is
the
this woman? Because there would have definitely been a reaction if I would have said that at 12. And I know it's a blind spot. I know. And I don't know if it's because she's the youngest. It could be a combination of her just being the youngest and a combination of her being the only girl
Well, mhm.
that I
Mm.
just don't. There's a lot of things that I think the boys have always pointed out, like, that would have never flown with us. Never. But
wow.
yet you're letting it fly with her. Or I'll explain things to her in more detail. And the boys are like, just tell her no. Like, why is there a conversation? Like, why is there back and forth?
They're like, what's
Just
this
let her
gentle
know a
parenting?
little bit, because that's
Like
what
with
you
the
would have
girl,
done.
there's more that sensitivity and that desire to communicate. That
But
whole
is it because she's a girl or is it because she's the youngest? That part I haven't figured out yet.
She's
And
the
it could be a
youngest.
combination of
It's
both.
because she's the
I
youngest.
think it's probably both. I think it's probably both. Now, see, here's the thing between Maya and Kaya. One thing, and it took me a minute to realize this, but once I did, I was up on game. Maya was more of the live out loud kind of person. So I didn't really have to snoop with her. Like, she just, you could see her stuff coming a mile away. Like, she lived the good and the bad out loud, right? And I appreciated that. Kaya, on the other hand, no, you're not gonna know. I had to keep my finger on the pulse with that one. You would never know.
But
And that's
I
because,
was sneaky. I wasn't sneaky.
um, mm,
yeah.
Kaya.
Okay,
You were
we're all
doing stuff
talking about
that people, and you were like the
I
stuff
guess we're
like
only talking about one specific phase then.
You
no,
know,
there's two. There's two. There's the
oh,
one where
Okay, all right, Maya, yep.
big sister got to give us some information.
We already talked about that on the previous episode. I already know that one.
No. So with Kaya, it was like, because she handled her business as far as school was concerned, as far as other things. So it was like a facade, not a facade, but it was like deflecting in a sense. Like, you were over here looking at this while she's over here doing these other things as well.
but I
But
feel
it
like
was Kaya.
I think for Kaya, a lot of her, and then I think this ties into like where we're going next. A lot of her issues, I guess, in that like preteen, middle school age was based off of her social circle and being influenced. And I feel like that's the age where you really start to be influenced by your social circles.
Yep.
So as parents, how do you feel like you can be like a positive influence on those friends or on those social circles, or have like,
On
like
other
how do you combat that? How do you work with that?
on other
Those
people's
two
children.
things with I think social circles, and I think also with Kaya wasn't as verbal.
Right.
So I think that had a lot to do with me not really knowing. Like, you
Mm,
talked a lot. Kaya didn't. Now with the friends thing, I don't know, Adia, how do you feel about this? I feel like I pointed out
you did. You
off
did.
the rip, like, that's not a good friend. Or
Hmm.
this
Mhm.
is what's going to happen with this
Mhm.
friend, or this is what's going
Always,
to, I
every
like her, or
time,
I like him. Oh, no. I mean, I would say
every
it,
time.
I didn't hold my tongue. It didn't matter though. And my
I
mom
think
didn't
that, yeah,
either.
I think parents in general, but especially moms, pretty much know in the first couple of seconds.
Listen,
But
just
I
like,
also think older siblings do too, because I've
Ah,
seen with
that's
my
true. That's
children
true.
yep,
that I will see
yep,
something and the older siblings will see it too.
yes.
And the child that we're talking about is just oblivious. Like, no, they're cool. And everybody else is like,
Right.
I don't know.
What do
You
you
know,
do though? Like that's I'm thinking about once I hear gets older and if he brings like I don't know what type of friends he'll like, but what if he brings people home and I'm just like, what's like, do you just let it play out? Like, do you
Because you
sit them down and be like,
You
Well,
like
does anybody any of our viewers have any advice or any ways that your counsel around a friend where your child actually listened? Because mine did.
And I feel like majority of times it's not going to though, especially like
I don't
because
think
you're still
so.
young.
I
Like
think that's
your
natural.
parents. That goes with anything. Your parents are going to
yeah.
tell you this, but are you going to listen? Your parents
Until you get older.
until
I
you
feel
get
like
older.
for mom, after like 5 friends and she was right, then I said, especially relationships. Now I'm like, all right, we need to meet my mother. We need to, hey friends, we need to come around my mom. And if she says something, I'm logging it. I may not like cut ties yet, but I'm definitely logging it. Like
You're
she
going to
knows
be
what she's talking
And
about.
just show me a picture. Just show me a picture. Just say yeah.
But you'll even notice and realize after hearing that initial statement from mom, like you'll start to recognize red flags that you may not have, picked up on.
hmm
But yeah, preteen and middle school years, I feel like you're still learning yourself as a person, as a child. Like,
yeah. And I
and it
think
don't
in
really
those
matter
years,
then.
because I have a middle schooler now. So in those years, I think all you can do is say something and then let it play out.
Let it play out.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They have to see that you're right. I don't think that in those younger years, I think Maya, you're at a stage now, just like my oldest is at a stage now where I think he understands what I'm saying. He gets it. He might not make, just like you said, he might not course correct right away. He might kind
Mm-hmm.
of like see what happens, but that's all what I said is always playing in the back of his head. And
Mm-hmm.
he
Exactly.
understands. So then he's like looking out for these things
Yes.
that I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Exactly.
But
That's the
in
point.
middle
That's the
school,
point.
high school, I just don't think that they even, it's like mom's just being mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you make a good point with that because we shouldn't stop letting them know what we see because that's also helping them to tune into things that they may not notice.
Yep.
And
Right.
we're
And
probably not
helping us trust your
right.
judgment. Because if
Yep.
you don't say
Exactly.
nothing until we're in high school, then we're really gonna be like, well, how do I even know what you know what you're talking about?
Exactly. And we're
Like,
part of that development and we're
yeah,
assisting with that, knowing that they're probably still going to hang out, knowing that but it's training them to look for certain
you
things,
know,
attention for certain things.
this just reminded me. I need to rewind and say that you weren't that controlling because you did let me when we lived in St. Louis. You did give me a lot of rope. And remember that one time you did let me go out somewhere and I called you because I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I just want, please just come get me. Like,
I was going to say that later on. Those were one of the moments where I was like, oh, my child has been paying attention
mm-hmm.
because I dropped her off at a party and I was like, these are her friends. I felt, no, I can't say that I thought that they were a horrible bunch of people. I didn't. But I was kind of aware of some of the things that might be going on.
Like smoking
Yes.
weed. That
Okay.
was the first time that I ever did.
And so I was like, I'm just like, I have no reason to say no. That's another thing that I didn't really do a lot. I didn't say no just to say no. I
Mm-hmm.
would have a reason for it. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to drop her off, let her do her thing. And I think it was like an hour and a half later, she was calling me, like, can you pick me up? I'm like,
It was
what?
boring.
What's going on?
And that helps too because with friend groups, I've said something but still allowed my kids to hang out with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then my older ones have given the younger ones examples like, well, mom said about this friend, and look where this friend is now. So
Mm, mm.
I think the older ones help with that because they had to go through it first and see that I was right. So then when the younger ones are doing it, they kind of reinforce. They help me reinforce. Like,
Yes.
remember my friend so and so? Well, I mean, he's in jail right now, and mom was like, "You might not be the
Dang.
person." you know.
I feel like we
So
definitely
that
do that with Kaya too.
I think we have to say it. And I always tell the kids, I wouldn't be your mother if I didn't say this. That's how it kind of started. Like, I have to say this because I'm your mom.
Yep.
You're not going to like what I'm going to say, but it wouldn't be me if I didn't say it.
Yep.
Exactly.
And then I just let it go from there. Like, I have to just kind of let it go.
Exactly. Consuelo says, I thought that my parents were controlling. Once I became an adult, I understood why on a lot of things.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know.
Like, I was never allowed to sleep over anybody's houses other than like my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a
I,
very, 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 very
Up until what
valid rule.
age?
And I'm gonna be girl
ever.
any all ever all.
I have never slept over a friend's house. Like, my mom was just not, she
Not
just wasn't. And then it wasn't even just the friends. It was like, I don't know who they bring into their house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how my mom kind of hit me with it. Like, yes, I like that friend. I've talked to her mom. I think her mom is great. But do we know her neighbor? Is the
right.
neighbor going to be okay? Is
Right.
the
Even the other siblings in
like,
the
all
house,
the things
like
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I've never done sleepovers with anyone other than family. My
Yeah.
daughter will not do a sleepover. It's just not. It's too crazy out there. I don't know if y'all have heard about. I don't remember what state it was in, but the guy it was like a bunch of 12-year-olds. He drugged everyone, including his daughter.
What?
And one of the daughters texted their mom and was like, I might not respond because she was feeling that he made them a smoothie, drugged it. And the girl texts her mom, like, hey, please come get me. If you text me back, I might not respond, but please come get me. The mom shows up to get the daughter, and the dad did everything he could to not let this girl get her daughter. She's like, oh, no, they're asleep. Come back in the morning. She's like, no, like, give me my daughter. Took her to the hospital. All the girls drugged. That was like a big national news.
Like that who have me come spraying the whole house down.
Right. And I
I know.
remember sitting in front of the TV with Amari, showing her the story on Facebook. Like, this
See?
is why you will not. This is why you can't do sleepovers. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I don't feel like I missed anything. Now that I'm grown, I don't feel like I missed anything by not being able to do sleepovers. Like, I don't feel like something was void in my life because my mom didn't let me do sleepovers.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way with her. Like, she's like, well, I always get invited to sleepovers. You can go over. You can stay.
I'm
And
go to bed.
Not
designated
picking you
time
up.
coming to get you.
Because
Like,
what are you going to be doing aside from sleeping anyway? Like,
exactly.
I'll bring you back for breakfast in the morning, but you're not sleeping.
I will come and get you. Even if it's late, I will come and get you, but you're not sleeping over. So that's another, like, I don't know, thing that I've explained to her that with my boys, I didn't. With my boys, it was just like, no.
Yeah.
Why, mom? Because I said no.
And that was one of those where you just say, because I said no.
Yeah.
You can explain. That's how
What are you gonna say? Like stranger
That bad
danger?
things happen. Yes, stranger
Honestly,
danger.
yes. Honestly,
You can
yes.
explain that there are people
I'm
that can
transparent to
hurt
this state.
you,
It's a crazy world. You have to
siblings that can hurt you.
thank you.
There
You
are
have
neighbors.
to in the
People do
real
crazy
honest
things like drug you.
situation in their head.
Yep. And that's where
Y'all cover each other.
I learned as a parent. Because with the older kids, it was just like, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel the need to explain. But now with her, I've explained it.
Yeah.
She understands it. I don't necessarily know if she likes it or not, but at least there's understanding behind my reasoning. Like, she doesn't think I'm just crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're making a good point. I think we're talking about this, like having that conversation so that you can teach the reason for the boundaries, also teaching ethics in terms of how you want, molding your child's way of interacting with others without versus being controlling. I think that's better developmentally versus than saying no, or you're wrong for this, or you're bad, or you're da 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 da. But explaining what it's like to, and the reason for the boundaries, and then what it's like to show up as a certain type of person in
I
community.
I do wonder this, Mom, because I feel like some is the reason, because for specifically for the sleepovers thing, because I remember you would always be like, I need to talk to their parent first. Like, if I can't have a phone conversation with their mom, then it can't happen, or this person, no. But there wasn't really like that conversation of like bad things happen sometimes. Da, 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 da. So I wonder if the reason, like, was it maybe like, do some parents not want to like, they want to shield their child from the evils of the world, but they don't necessarily want them to know that they exist. Is that kind of where
Mm.
that comes from?
I think that is also, we can get into why parents don't talk to their children about sex.
Yeah.
Mm.
The same thing. You don't want to, and this goes back to people just feeling uncomfortable within themselves having those types of conversations
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like, they weren't, people didn't have those conversations with them. They weren't in a situation where they learned that these conversations were valuable, were necessary. And then it's out of habit. Like, you're just not used to it. And so I think that's part of it. Like, we don't want to talk about what's real. We don't
Yeah.
want to talk about what's real. We just want to, it's easier to not find yourself in those vulnerable situations, I guess, even talking to
Mm-hmm.
your children. I remember when you guys were younger and I was doing a Young Sisters boot camp with Ashara in Denver. And you guys would come and sit in on some of the sessions, and we talked about a lot of different things. And you guys were exposed to that as well. But I was like, if they can't have these conversations with in this environment and with me, then who are they going to have them with? We didn't get that grant in until like 2 weeks before. We didn't get approved. Didn't get funding until 2 weeks before the start date. And we were like, oh man, we're probably not going to have anybody here for this particular thing. It was funded by the health department to talk about sex education and other things with women or young girls. And so we put it out. We had a wait list because parents were uncomfortable having these conversations with their children.
Yeah.
They were uncomfortable. They said, please
Yeah,
talk
I
to
like this.
my
Yeah.
daughters about sex. Talk to my daughters about their bodies. Talk to them. And it was so surprising how little they did know, how many of them had never even looked at their parts. They didn't even know what they looked like. So then they could be in situations with young boys or other young girls who could tell them whatever they wanted to tell them, and they would be lost. But I think there's just culturally, socially, we are not encouraged and don't know how to have those conversations with our children because I don't know, the just we haven't faced those things ourselves in all truth and honesty.
That's true. That's true.
Now, do you think that there's a flip side to that though? Because I think I'm on the flip side
But
where my kids are way too comfortable
So
talking
that
to me.
sums
Like
up everything.
there's conversations that my boys have had with me. All of my let me make sure I'm saying this. Yeah, all of my boys have come to me when they lost their virginity.
yes.
Okay.
And I was so uncomfortable, but I couldn't let it. I was just so like, I don't want to hear this. But it was almost like, Ma, guess what?
Oh no. Oh no.
So what I think is really funny is that my mom tells me that my brother was like that with her. I think it's boys. They talk to their
It could
mom
be.
about this stuff that
Oh,
conversation she said that he would call her with, and she would be like, okay,
Um,
just yeah,
I
very
think it is
candid, very
boys.
transparent, very open.
My
there
brother
it,
called me. I had a brother that called me and told me that when he lost his virginity, and so I think it might be boys and sharing with the
It's
women in their
boy.
life. Because I was on the
Mhm.
phone
mm,
like I didn't know what to say. Like,
right. And as a parent, you're like, of course, I'm asking, did you use
were
protection?
you safe? That's the first question. Were you safe?
Yeah. One of my
Right.
brothers.
And I didn't want to shut the conversation down because I want them to be comfortable, but
Yeah.
my skin is crawling. Like, ugh. I'm happy that they're comfortable with me like that. I'm happy we have
Yes,
open dialogue. My
yes.
youngest child calls me the naked mom. He was like, I have a naked mom.
We had a naked mom.
Naked mommies, naked
I think that's
mommies.
important too, and just on parenting, like letting
Naked-
people like get comfortable with bodies and things like that. Like I
Hmm.
think, like you said, there is oversharing, but I think it's better than under because and maybe like for girls, like you said, maybe they don't talk as much, so maybe it may be necessary to have those conversations a little bit
Yes,
more to
yes.
open that door, especially because the threat to women is just a little bit stronger. Um, so yeah, that's
See, I don't
crazy.
know though, because even with my daughter, when she developed breast, the first person she went to was her dad and was like, look, dad, they jiggle. And my husband was so he was so disgusted. He was like, I had to tell him, like, don't have such a negative reaction because you don't want her to think it's wrong. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
His reaction was, oh my God.
That is so hilarious. Okay, we have a few comments from our viewers. Let's see, everybody's chiming in on this one. Nia says, I've made it a thing to remove the taboos around those conversations with my children because I want my passing on to be education and wisdom about what's really real. That way they aren't playing catch up after being knocked out when they step out there in the real world. That part.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah, that's
Like,
very
let me
much.
get you equipped so it won't be all new to you and you're just trying to figure things out.
Yeah, I feel like. Oh, go ahead.
Just this one here. DC Love Forever 123 says, I was a young parent, so I was very open about sex with my children.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes
I
The
wonder if
taboo
that has
part
something
about
to do
it.
with it, to the age of the parent.
I was gonna say, I feel
Yeah.
like that definitely
Yes, that's a good point. And Shauna says, mine too. Want to put my fingers in my ears, but I open that tell me everything, any and everything from children. She has boys as well. So she was agreeing, like they just tell her everything.
Yeah. And it's so uncomfortable, but you gotta like hide your uncomfortable. You gotta
I feel
kind of
like the
tuck your
generation,
uncomfortable feeling in.
I feel like generationally it's kind of opening up now to where like our generation is more open about things like that. But I think because we're just like more comfortable talking about it, period. But with Sahir, I'm definitely like, I notice like I'll tell him like, oh, this is your nose, this is your mouth, this is your feet, this is your knee. But when I'm changing his diaper, I'm not like, this is your butt, this is your penis. Like, why are we not pointing out? You know, it's kind of taboo. So I started doing that now. Like, I'm like, he wants to go touch things. I'm like, this is everything is your body part. I'm not going to taboo that. This is your penis. This is your scrotum. This is your knee. This is your ear. Like, it's all the same so that he doesn't have that taboo. Even in my own body. Like, sometimes, like, it's just a body. And I know I'm going to teach him to respect boundaries, but just removing the taboos that I may have and being like, yeah, this is mommy's nipple. Like, he's breastfed baby. He needs to know the names of these things without it having, like, a taboo or a sexual connotation so that he doesn't just view women as sexual objects when he grows older.
That's good.
And children are smart, so they'll wonder, why is she not mentioning the part, right? And then they'll think that, oh, this must be, there's some mystery around that. So they'll seek out information other places, and we know what, what that can mean.
Yeah.
When my kids were young, we had what's called no-no spots. So we always talked about their body parts, but certain spots were no-no spots. And in your no-no spots, you had to give permission. So this was a no-no spot unless you gave permission. If you didn't give permission, then no one should be touching you there.
Hello.
And that's kind of how we talked about.
I wonder if we should take that a step further. And just as you said that, I wondered, because I think most of us did that and stopped right there. This is a no-no spot. This is, don't let anybody touch you here. But why?
But why?
We never say why. And so they're curious. It's a no-no. Ooh, well, why? You know what I'm saying? Why shouldn't anybody hear? What is this? This is real special, or it's dirty, or it's, but why can't anybody? You know,
who knows how a kid could interpret that beyond?
That's so true. And and I didn't go further with that. It was just this is your no-no spot, and you have to give permission for these spots. Right. But I didn't go into the why or I never did that part.
Just face some things like, so explaining why. This would get really interesting. But it's normal life.
And like, kids, the more you explain to kids, the more they understand. You know, like they can understand more than we think. You just have to you just have to speak a different language. They were like, kids can understand, you just have to word it in a way that they get it, which can take time or research or whatever, but it's possible. And proper names, yes.
And proper names for the parts of the body, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. I was like, I don't want to tell them these are balls. What's the real name? Oh, it's a scrotum. Like,
because then he's gonna be like ball and balls. Wait a minute.
Right. I don't even use the word, but I was like, let's be scientific here.
Okay, so we didn't even really get through. I think we got 3/4 our way. We need to do a part 2 because this is a loaded topic, and we're just starting. We're kind of segueing into the teenage years, and then we got to talk about young adult and transitioning into that. So we're going to keep this rolling for our next podcast. And I would also like to, there's a guy friend I reached out to, but I want to bring on a guy guest as well to get their perspective on parenting and some of this. So we're going to do a part 2, right? And we're going to have Adia, if you would like to come back for our
absolutely. And I will say, because my husband and I, it is very different. I would love to hear another guy's perspective, because I take the pillow talk that goes down about parenting and the different ways he sees things and I see things. It's very interesting
very
how
different.
yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So that's what's up. Next podcast, I'm going to certainly make sure we have a guy with us to give their perspective as well on raising girls and boys, and then we'll go from there. Nia says, this was cool. I enjoyed it. Definitely those team tips. My son will be 11 this year. Yep. We're going to start off talking about the temporary insanity phase, because that's the stage in which he's going into. And I have a theory about all of that. But, this was wonderful. So we'll have Adia back. We'll have a male guest on as well. And we'll have a game, and we can all play the game together. You know,
Yay. This was so awesome. Adia, we loved having you. This was so awesome.
Thank you guys for having me, and I feel so honored to be your first guest. Like,
I mean, it's only right that you're our first guest. By the way, y'all, the merch that we have, the hoodies that we have, the shirts that we have, they're all thanks to Adia. Like,
yes.
like
Don't be scared.
Yep. Put in your orders. I can print some more.
Next Tuesday, is that the 11th?
Yes, March 11th.
Okay, March 11th, we'll be here 7:30 Eastern time for part 2 of raising the children.
When we were at 40 minutes, I was like, we're gonna need to do part 2.
We have
There's so much we didn't touch on. So much.
No, so we'll look through and make sure we cover that next time. And I'm excited. We'll have a guy join us as well.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see y'all for part 2 next Tuesday.
Adia, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Silver Cocoon.
Yes. All right, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.